European countries are announcing varying degrees of lockdowns amid a second wave of the coronavirus pandemic and fears that the surge in the number of infections would strain hospital wards across the continent. Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte announced a 6 p.m. curfew for the country's restaurants and cafes, calling for national unity. He said the restrictions can be eased if the infection curve is kept under control. French President Emmanuel Macron decreed a new national lockdown lasting until at least the 1st of December. He warned that the second wave of the outbreak in the country can prove to be even deadlier than the first. In Belgium, Prime Minister Alexander De Croo expressed hope that a team of 11 million citizens would come together in following more stringent regulations. The United Kingdom has also joined the countries that have announced nationwide lockdowns for the second time.
And so now is the time to take action because there is no alternative. And from Thursday until the start of December, you must stay at home. You may only leave home for specific reasons.
Boris Johnson added that all non-essential retail stores will close down, but there would be no need for citizens to stock up.
Things are very bad in Europe at the moment. The general mass of the population has lost confidence in the government because of their mishandling, and I would say even criminal negligence surrounding COVID-19 since the beginning. China, for example, went on full lockdown on January the 23rd for 6 weeks and is now on top of it. Normal life has returned, and the economic growth for which China is well known has been restored because China had what's called a full lockdown.
The stringent measures come as the country's confirmed COVID-19 infections exceeded 1 million, with over 20,000 cases being reported daily.
So Europe has once again become the hotbed for COVID-19, accounting for almost half of the world's infections last week. But the government's response by announcing new restrictions and states of emergency have been met with widespread anger. Demonstrations against the measures have been held in several European countries, including Spain, Italy, France, Germany and the UK. Striking a balance between keeping the economy open and protecting public health has proven to be a daunting task for the governments. The prospect of a slow and incomplete economic recovery, as well as a growing skepticism in the authorities' capacity to handle the crisis, is adding to fears of civil unrest and revolt on the continent. How dire is the situation, and how can it be diffused?
The economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic, massive layoffs and rising unemployment levels in Europe have added to already lingering concerns about public health. The mayors of 9 cities have bypassed their national governments to write directly to the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, demanding access to the €750 billion EU Recovery Fund. Protesters from across the continent are calling on their governments to provide greater financial support to those hit worst by the pandemic. In Italy, a tipping point appears to be disturbingly close. Angry demonstrations erupted in Naples just over a week ago after a local curfew was imposed. The protests were followed by a civil order in Milan and Turin, where luxury stores were looted. A poll following last week's mini-riots found that over 3/4 of Italians believe there will be more violence in the streets this winter. Experts also believe it is quite likely that countries like France that witnessed unprecedented strikes and protests before the pandemic even began face serious social unrest.
The potential economic damage from the virus and from new lockdowns is of course very considerable. Already we've seen European economies shrink at times during this year, and several governments, including the British government, have introduced financial schemes to help companies keep people employed. So for example, here in Britain we've had what's called a furlough scheme, where companies are paid 80% of workers' wages while they are in fact at home not working. But of course that will be very, very expensive for the country, and Britain and other countries in Europe are running up huge debts and deficits which will have to be paid off one day.
The stakes were remarkably high before the first lockdowns were imposed back in March. but they may be even higher now.